Welcome back to The Paper Pursuer. Continuing on with show notes 1197, I'm going to put a few articles together on this video. I believe they're all from the Washington Examiner, and they're all pretty short. So let me get started. So this one's titled "House Approves $8.3 Billion to Battle Coronavirus" by Susan Ferrechio, March 4th, 2020. The House passed an $8.3 billion measure to fund the federal government's response to the coronavirus outbreak, which has claimed 11 lives and infected more than 100 people in the United States. The measure passed nearly unanimously and will now head to the Senate, which is expected to pass it as early as Thursday. The government's greatest responsibility is to keep Americans safe, said House Appropriations Committee Chairwoman Nita Lowey, a New York Democrat. The emergency supplemental addresses the coronavirus and takes critical steps to protect the American people from this deadly and expanding outbreak. The vote followed a private House briefing by Vice President Mike Pence on the status of the virus and the federal government's efforts to test for it, prevent the spread of the disease, and develop a vaccine. The measure is much larger than the $2.5 billion request sent to Congress by the Trump administration. The president said last week he will sign whatever funding amount Congress sends to his desk. The bill would provide $3 billion for the research and development of vaccines and treatments for the coronavirus, $2.2 billion for prevention and response to the virus, $1 billion for medical supplies, and $1.5 billion to combat the virus overseas. The measure allows for $7 billion in low-interest loans for small businesses affected by the coronavirus. I think that $1.5 billion to combat the virus overseas should just go into R&D, because that's going to be more helpful than just shipping it over there and some jackass gets a hold of the money and doesn't go to the people. Some elite, more wasted fucking money. House and Senate Democrats and Republicans struck an agreement on the spending measure earlier Wednesday after haggling over price controls for the vaccines and treatments. The measure includes language giving the Department of Health and Human Services the authority to ensure vaccines and treatments are affordable in the commercial market. The funding includes $300 million to help pay for vaccines for those who cannot afford them. Senators in both parties endorsed the measure Wednesday. Finally, bipartisan legislation. Today, Democrats and Republicans in Congress showed that they can come together in a bipartisan way to respond to the coronavirus in a swift, smart, and strategic way to keep the American people safe, said Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, a New York Democrat. Republicans and Democrats say expanding testing and developing a vaccine must be a priority for the federal government. Congress is very likely to approve supplemental funding this week to provide states, local governments, and healthcare professionals the resources needed to respond to the virus. Senator Pat Toomey, a Pennsylvania Republican, said, "I intend to support this measure." So I was at a class tonight for kickboxing, and I was talking to one of the other women, and she said a friend of hers' daughter is being evacuated from Italy, where she has been taking classes. The mom's frustrated that her daughter has to come home, and they're just going to she'll just stay in town. It won't be a problem. But she has to be quarantined for 3 months. And I think the woman's being hyperbolic because, I would think 3-4 weeks would probably be good. But the dim bulb actually said she'd be quarantined to the town, not the house. I swear, if they don't snatch that chick up off the plane and quarantine her, that's just ignorant, bringing her to the hometown. Oh my gosh. Anyway, moving on to the next article. Thanks for dealing with my rant there. Once again, another Washington Examiner article, and this one's titled "Bloomberg's Money Train Wreck Shows You Can't Buy Elections Other Than Virginia" by Washington Examiner, March 4th, 2020. Democrats and even some Republicans have long pushed the idea that money buys elections, especially since the Supreme Court Citizens United versus FEC decision. The boogeyman of campaign spending has been invoked to justify proposals to limit freedom of speech and restrict people's ability to participate in the political process. But as the failure of Michael Bloomberg demonstrates, as if it had to be demonstrated yet again, money doesn't buy elections. No, but emotions sometimes do. Bloomberg entered the race late with a novel strategy of skipping the early contest and bombarding Super Tuesday states with a blizzard of advertising. He spent $558 million on ads alone. Where else could he have spent the money? According to advertising analytics, in addition to money spent on hundreds of field offices nationwide and thousands of employees. They were paid well, from what I understand. Like, really well. Good for them. There was a brief period when doubts were rising about Joe Biden, and it seemed Bloomberg's strategy had some chance. But after Senator Elizabeth Warren shredded Bloomberg at a debate, the party coalesced around Biden. For all of Bloomberg's millions, he could only boast of a victory in American Samoa. At least, I mean, he is a twit and a control freak, power-hungry douchebag. But at least he's, lucid, not totally off on the funny farm like Biden is, but let's go on. Bloomberg's failure shows a costly faceplant by Tom Steyer, who spent about $200 million, a lot of it in the early states. For all of his spending and consistent debate appearances, Steyer never made much of an impression. He chalked up 2 6th-place finishes, a 5th-place finish, and a 3rd-place finish, failing to win even a single debate. He was awkward and not personable. He was too busy brown-nosing up to Bernie than developing his own story and his credibility. Certainly, Bloomberg and Steyer would have done worse than that without the money. Steyer, a small business owner, and Bloomberg, a former mayor, probably would not have qualified for any debates. They likely would have dropped out even sooner than they did. But to win elections, candidates have to connect with and persuade voters. They have to show they can hold their own while not hiding behind massive ad budgets. Yeah, well, Bernie can't even do that. He always dips his head. He's only fiery when he's by himself. No conflict, Bernie. Some may point to the success of President Trump and see it as proof that a wealthy businessman can use money to buy elections. But Trump's 2016 campaign was actually one of the most frugal in modern times. Yeah, he relied on friggin' news media, the mollusk news media, to get his name out there, and boy, did it work. In the 2016 primary, Trump spent less than nearly any of his major Republican rivals. In the general election, he was nearly outspent 2-1 by Hillary Clinton. The combined total of Trump's primary spending, $71 million, and general election spending, $398 million, over 17 months, was less than Bloomberg spent in just 3 months on advertising alone. Jeez. People attribute Trump's success to the free media attention he received. However, that was no accident. Love him or hate him, Trump didn't need a massive budget to manipulate the media. He understood that being provocative and unpredictable generates more headlines than giving standard stump speeches and running canned political ads. He also managed to fend off attacks during debates, a far cry from how Bloomberg wilted under questioning from Warren. Yeah, it was pathetic. But Bloomberg's investment of $500 million was not a total waste. From now on, whenever you have to suffer through long jeremiads about how money buys elections, you can think of Bloomberg 2020, knowingly shake your head and say with great confidence, no, not really. Yeah, not on the federal level, but he did it in Virginia, and he's been doing it in other states. He's pushing it in Texas. I can't remember all the states right now, but holy crap, we saw Virginia get flipped. He's working. Texas is on his docket now. Maryland too. He got some dim bulb here in Annapolis. Won't even let people talk. Mom, surrounded by moms. Demand action. Bull crap. Idiots. All right. Let's see. Let me go ahead and pop out this last article from the Washington Examiner. Another short one. Top Democrat asks DHS to consider Secret Service protection for 2020 Democrats, by Mike Brest, March 4th, 2020. The day after protesters rushed Joe Biden at Super Tuesday rally, a top House Democrat isn't taking any chances. Representative Bernie Thompson, chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, wrote a letter Wednesday to acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf, urging him to offer Secret Service protection to the candidate seeking the Democratic presidential nomination. I write to urge you to immediately undertake the consultation process necessary to determine whether any Democratic candidates for president should be afforded protection by the United States Secret Service. USSS read the letter to Wolf. I need to go to bed soon, man. I'm just coming up with words that aren't even on here. While the guidelines indicate that A candidate must request protection from the Secretary and the USSS Director in order to begin the consultation and authorization process. The guidelines also indicate that the absence of a request would not prevent the authorization of protection when warranted, the Mississippi Democrat added. The letter came a day after two protesters shouting, "Let dairy die," stormed the stage in Los Angeles, while Biden was giving a speech after his Super Tuesday victories. The first demonstrator was quickly intercepted and removed from the stage by a security guard, but was followed by a second protester that jumped up, waved a sign, and was blocked by Biden's wife. Biden's senior advisor, Simone Sanders, rushed up to grab the second protester, who was then escorted away. And she moved in there like she was security. Jeez, it was great. Former White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs said Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders needed Secret Service protection after Tuesday's genuinely scary moment. Please. It wasn't the first time Jill Biden intercepted a protester during one of her husband's events. In New Hampshire last month, she crossed behind the podium and intercepted a heckler, helping security remove the individual from the crowd. The protesters were against the dairy industry. Anti-dairy protesters also interrupted a rally for Sanders last month. Oh, man, that's pretty funny. I saw the video on that. It was tame compared to that Black Lives Matter stuff the last go-around where they yanked the mic up and Bernie just sat there with his head down. Oh, could you imagine him trying to talk to friggin' Asian countries? Holy crap, what a flippin' nightmare that would be. All right, so those three are done. I still have a couple more, but I'm going to call it a break for now, and I'll get the other ones out later. See you later, guys. Bye.